Hello friends, and welcome to Devotionables, brief devotions for busy people. At a busy intersection here, a little busy day. Hope you're doing well. This devotional finds us in Psalm 16. It's a resurrection psalm, and it's a beautiful psalm. It's again, I had a pastor that used to tell our church, you were either in a problem, coming out of a problem, or about to go into a problem. Sometimes you're in multiple places like that. And here again, we find David in a problem. A problem, we don't know the exact circumstances with this psalm. Sometimes we do, like with Absalom when he's fleeing. We don't know the exact situation, but we once again see how David handles his problems is by taking them to the Lord. And he cries out and he asks the God to protect him. He takes refuge in the Lord. And those themes of Psalm 1 and 2 continue to come out. 1 and 2, the contrast between the righteous and the wicked individually and as nations, and then taking refuge in God. And so David says, I'm not going to be like the wicked who are pursuing false gods that often they will not only not be able to save, but actually will cause death, cause damnation. But he is putting his trust, his hope in the Lord. I want to take our attention. As I mentioned, this is the resurrection psalm. See here toward the end of the chapter, verse 10, and they really 9 through 11. So David begins with a prayer, and he turns into praise this psalm, and he has this resolute assurance, this hope that the Lord will not abandon him. The Lord will not, even in death, God does not abandon his people, his saints. In fact, in a later psalm, it says, how precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints. And so this psalm has brought a much comfort to God's people through the years. In fact, when I read this psalm, I think of my grandmother. This was preached at her funeral. And probably many of you have heard this psalm at a funeral. And David, he says, you will not abandon my soul to Sheol, the grave, nor will you let your Holy One see corruption. And we know that he's talking about Jesus. David is here because Peter and Paul, both in the book of Acts, say as much. They teach us this. They say, hey, David wasn't talking about himself here. He was talking about the one to come, the king from Psalm 2, Jesus. And, it feels like, sometimes whatever problems you're facing, will God be faithful? Will God be faithful? Absolutely. To those who have taken refuge in him, he will be faithful no matter what. Even when it seems like in your dying moments, whatever that is, whether it's some type of violent kind of end, and I hope and pray you don't have to experience that. Maybe it's a health medical crisis, or maybe it's just old age and you feel like, man, life wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be. Is God faithful? Is God here? David says yes. And we know that this is true, obviously because it's God's word, but because it came true in Jesus Christ. And you think about a psalm we're heading to soon, Psalm 22. My God, why have you forsaken me? It's how that psalm begins. Jesus cries out from the cross. But that Jesus experienced in that moment as he bore the holy, just wrath of God on behalf of sinners who have taken refuge in him, he knew what it was like to be abandoned. So that all who take refuge in him, like a mother hen, a mother bird covering under her wings, her little birds, her babies, God protects his people. So no matter what you're facing, whether even in death, and we think, hey, is there anything worse than death? And we know there actually is, right? To experience death without having taken refuge in God, only to be cast out from his presence into hell. And then it's too late. So take refuge now. Take refuge now. Behold Christ and take refuge in him. There's joy in his right hand, pleasures forevermore.